And then the third area I would like to talk about is the one in between the two, that I called evaluation and normalization. So this is meant to normalize and assess the loudness level of the content prior to transmission. The main area in this category is the QC, so the quality control. The quality control department takes care of assessing the loudness, and beside that all other technical parameters, so video and metadata and other factors. And it makes sure that all the contents that are provided before them being ingested for transmission are complying with all the technical standards. So amongst the ones that we see listed in the source area, which one do you think that could be used and could apply to the quality control area? Can we use the live feeds for the quality control? Can we feed the live feeds to the quality control? No. Any suggestion?
Real-time processor.
No. Which sources would we feed to the quality control? Okay, I'll give you a bit hint. The productions that have not produced according to the, in this case, the R128, definitely need to be assessed in the quality control area. At the same time, also other pre-recorded productions have the same need to be processed, or no, sorry, not processed, but measured and controlled in the quality control. So in this area, we definitely need a meter, a loudness meter. And the only operation that a quality control engineer could do is either take the program and pass it on to the ingestion, or reject it and request a new master. Then going on, we have the cinema productions. So content that has been produced within a different environment, with different setting, and with a different target, for a different destination. And I think that we cannot just take, as unfortunately many times it is done, that content and just put into the ingestion phase. We have to modify and to repurpose that content in order to have it translating well in the TV domain. And for that, there is an area called repurposing. And as well, what do we need in the repurposing area? In this case, we need the meter and the processor, because the meter is needed to assess and evaluate the loudness and the audio levels, and the processor, of course, to accommodate and modify them in order to make that content applying to the complying with the new standard for TV. So once all these pre-recorded material are ready, they can go into the ingesting. And talking about live feed, we can think of a similar area that create a more compliant version for the TV listening, especially because if you think at sport events, can you imagine how messy and confusing is a gallery, an audio gallery in an OB van, where all the communications go, and the poor sound engineer that I don't envy at all has to provide the best audio possible with all the director calling, or phone calls arriving, or other operators moving around the same small booth, and with probably a not optimized sound playback system. So a solution for that is to have an area that could provide, in a much more controlled environment, proper mixing and translation for the 5.1 content, as well for the stereo content, to the transmission. In case this is not possible, again, we can use real-time processors that would do more or less the same job, but with being non-controlled by any human. They would be, of course, maybe less effective, but still could do the job. And in that area, we, of course, would still rely on meter and processors for the same reasons. But the best solution is to move as back as possible the control of loudness and of mixes back where the original content is created. And this would be for new productions, according to the R128, and as well for live feeds. So wherever it is possible, of course, if we can design the proper infrastructure that would work and would have people trained according to these standards, in my opinion, this is always the best solution. And then we have this huge amount of material which has been already produced and ingested and definitely mastered years and years ago when all this matter was treated differently. And in that case, we can only measure and process those material, improve as much as possible. Unfortunately, the timing in the broadcast industry does not allow to take every content and to master as in a different industry like the music industry it would be possible. So the best and the most automated processing is in that area the best it is. And finally, we have pass-through channels that, as I said before, we have no control at all on those channels. So we can only rely on real-time processors according to the best setting. So according also to the nature of the channel and of the content that is played through that stream. So we have to fine-tune the processor in order to provide the best audio quality possible and to match with the overall and the target loudness level. So if we recap what I said, let's we have a look if we were able to reach our goals. We needed and wanted to maintain program loudness level consistent. I think that by applying all those tools, we could do it. To maintain channels loudness level consistent as well. We wanted to provide consistent levels amongst different audio formats. And as I said, whenever we can do it by offline processing or operating with professional engineers, that's always, in my opinion, the best solution. Then we want to provide comfortable loudness range. We learned how using that parameter in the R128, we can develop good skill. We want to not affect the original creative intent. I think that, as I said, if we limit the use of the real-time processor in transmission, we have a much more controlled operation while we approach and we modify the original dynamics of the program. So we should be able to prevent the abuse of compression and to just apply as much as we need. And possibly in this way, we were able to provide the best listening experience to the listeners, especially if we compare to what the current situation is in many, many broadcasters. And last but not least, we have to, and we possibly are able to comply with the regulations, because as we have been checking every single item before and prior to transmission, this is definitely the only way and the best way to make sure that we are not breaking the law. Possibly, we are also pleasing the advertisers because we are definitely increasing the audio quality of their content. And by providing a consistent level between program and commercials, I think we are definitely averaging the experience of the customers. So even the interstitial breaks would be perceived as part of the entertainment. So rather than having them kicking the viewer out and having them jumped on the sofa, we just not even advise them that there is an advert. And if this is has the same quality as typical other content have, it could be an enormous improvement for them, and as a consequence also for the entire advertising industry. So, let's lead to some conclusions. Again, other people might have different opinions, but this is simply what I have been experiencing during the years. I think that we should rely on real-time processing as little as possible. In some cases, they are very, very useful, and not because TC Electronic is here, but I think you would agree with me that they not only should be considered a great organizer of this such an informative event, but most of all they are just among the best products designer in audio. And then it's important, in my opinion, to not give for guaranteed that content coming from other platforms or other destination distribution would be just simply good as well on TV. Process, everything is not being produced according to the loudness standards and use the proper tools. But the better is, of course, by using those tools as soon as possible in the production chain. So I have experienced an enormous increase in the audio quality and sound quality by relying on loudness metering and normalization. Of course, it's not given for free, so it definitely implies a little investment, which is definitely worth, and needs some training. And that's, I guess, one of the reasons why we are here today. But the result is definitely worth. So I think that it's absolutely great that this has become a reality. This has come true because we are all benefiting from this as engineers, as producers, and as well as users. And that's all. So I'm available for questions.